When did World War II truly begin? 1939 or 1933? What if I told you the fuse was lit not in Berlin, but in the jungles of Africa, the bustling factories of Victorian England, and the halls of forgotten empires? Most history books tell you what happened. Today, we dive into why it was almost inevitable. This isn't just about one man. It's about a century of greed, fear, and a global echo chamber of unresolved conflict. We begin not in the 1930s, but in the late 19th century. This was the era of the scramble for Africa and the great game in Asia. Every major European power was in a frantic race, grabbing land, resources, and what you might call relics of power. This wasn't about a civilizing mission. It was about raw, brutal dominance. The lines drawn on maps in Berlin in 1884, carving up Africa among nations that had never set foot there, would literally become the battle lines of future wars. Imagine these vast colonial empires. This isn't just land on a map. It's a constant flow of raw materials, a source of cheap labor, and a symbol of national prestige that fueled an insatiable thirst for more. The very same nations that would later face each other in the trenches of World War I were already fighting shadow wars for decades across Africa and Asia, competing for every last scrap of territory and influence. This relentless competition created a deep-seated rivalry and a belief that global power was a zero-sum game. For one empire to rise, another had to fall. Germany, a latecomer to this imperial scramble, felt cheated, left with the scraps while Britain and France held vast, resource-rich territories. This sense of being denied their place in the sun would become a core part of their national grievance, a wound that never truly healed and would fester for decades to come. Then came the Great War, the war to end all wars. Except, it didn't end anything. It just pressed pause. The Treaty of Versailles, signed in 1919, wasn't really a peace treaty. For Germany, it was a sentence of national humiliation. They were forced to accept full blame for the war, stripped of their colonies. Their military was dismantled, and they were saddled with reparations payments, so immense they were impossible to pay. This didn't create peace. It created a deep, festering wound of resentment that would poison German politics for the next 2 decades. It was the perfect breeding ground for extremist ideologies that promised to restore lost honor and tear up the hated treaty. Then, just as the world was struggling to recover, the floor fell out. The Great Depression hit in 1929 and spread like a virus across the globe. International trade collapsed. Banks failed. Millions upon millions lost their jobs, their savings, their hope. In this desperate climate, democratic governments seemed weak and ineffective. People everywhere were looking for strong leaders, for scapegoats, and for drastic solutions. It wasn't just Germany. Japan, an island nation with few natural resources of its own, saw military expansion into resource-rich Manchuria as its only path to survival and economic security. In Italy, Mussolini dreamed of resurrecting the glory of the Roman Empire, leading to the brutal invasion of Ethiopia. Each nation turned inward, pursuing aggressive, self-interested policies. The global cooperation of the 1920s evaporated, replaced by a dog-eat-dog mentality where conquest seemed like a viable, even necessary, economic strategy. So, with all these warning signs, why didn't the world stop it? The key relic here isn't a physical object, but a state of mind, appeasement. Britain and France, the main victors of World War I, were haunted by the memory of its slaughter. They were traumatized, economically weakened, and politically terrified of another conflict. They wanted peace at any cost. So when Hitler began to rearm Germany, when he marched troops into the Rhineland in violation of the treaty, when he annexed Austria, the response was silence, negotiation, and concession. They hoped that by giving him what he said he wanted, he would eventually be satisfied. Across the Atlantic, the United States was deep in its own period of isolationism, determined to avoid being dragged into what they saw as Europe's ancient, endless wars. This collective silence, this desperate hope that the problem would just go away, was interpreted by the aggressive powers as a green light. It signaled that the world was too divided, too tired and too afraid to stand in their way. Each step went unchallenged. Japan's invasion of Manchuria was met with little more than a slap on the wrist. Italy's conquest of Ethiopia was met with ineffective sanctions. And most famously, the Munich Agreement of 1938, where Britain and France handed over a piece of Czechoslovakia to Hitler, was hailed as securing peace for our time. But it was a false peace, bought with the currency of another nation's freedom. The echoes of colonial arrogance, the unresolved anger from Versailles, the desperation of economic collapse, and the paralysis of fear all combined into a perfect storm. The seeds of violence, sown over a century of competition, greed, and grievance, were now bearing their deadly fruit. World War II wasn't an isolated event sparked by a single invasion. It was the catastrophic climax of a century of these unaddressed global tensions, the final, deafening roar in an echo chamber of conflict. What World War II teaches us is that history doesn't just happen. It builds. Small injustices, unaddressed grievances, economic desperation, and the unchecked thirst for power can echo across generations, gathering force until they explode with devastating consequences. The real origin of World War II isn't a single date or a single treaty. It's a long, complex chain of causes and effects, a powerful warning that we must pay attention to the echoes of the past, because they are shaping our present and our future. What echoes from the past do you see in the world today that worry you? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And remember to subscribe for more journeys that connect the past to our present. Thanks for watching.